Now, it's time to learn stuff about stuff, I would say. My people of interest. Jakub. Yeah. Jakub's always been a scoundrel and a grouch, but there's nobody you'd rather have at your side in battle. Originally from Poland, Jakub lost his parents in the siege of Warsaw and grew up scrounging on the streets. The siege of Warsaw. Well, we know that the world was going to absolute shit, which is why we left Earth and went to another planet. He managed to escape to the States by boats as a young refugee, where he was happy to take up arms as a merc as long as he got 3 meals a day. He signed on as a mechanic and driver under Jack Tanner the same day you were recruited. We were recruited on the same day. Over the next 5 years, you faced combat together more times than you care to count, fighting for whatever country was paying. You and Jakub were the only survivors of a squad airdropped into Venezuela during the fall of Caracas, and managed to extract 3 high-profile assets. You lasted 9 months together in a Syrian prison camp in 73. Along with Tanner, you and Jakub survived a chopper crash in the Zagros Mountains and walked all the way to Kermanshah. Sure. On landing day in Enoch, Jakub is the outrider responsible for driving and maintaining your truck. Yep. 31 years after landing on Enoch, you were sent on a mission to find Jakub. Gotcha. He has left the life and ideals of the Outriders behind. He is now a crack mechanic under Grand Marshal Shiro Gutman's employ, capable of keeping away any set of wheels turning. He nonetheless prefers to laze around and gripe about his predicament from his comfortable cocoon of fatalism. Zahidi, gotcha. I'm not sure we need to read these, of just like, yeah, cause like Jane, isn't she dead? Yep. She like basically never even got any voice lines. We never got to learn like anything about her. She served under Shiro for many years, gotcha. Yeah, she's a crack sniper, popped the captain from 200 feet. And then a staunch believer in Zahidi's mission. And she was the one who found me when I was in stasis. And then she died. Dr. Nathan Skurlock, a xenobiologist. He bent all his efforts toward discovering a treatment for the fungus in the forest. So we're probably going to meet this guy, Dr. Nathan Skurlock. Because I don't recognize him. I don't think we met him yet. As part of the first team of chemists and botanists to study the infected Outriders in their labs in the first city, he witnessed firsthand the deadliness of the alien spores. Trained at Harvard in the final years of Earth. Okay, so we're probably gonna meet this guy when we go to the forest, where there's gonna be fungus and stuff. Oh, hey, Seth the Altered. Yes, one of the few Altered fighting for the ECA. Massive power, but he's unpredictable and unreliable and possibly the end boss of the game. Who knows? Who knows? Shira Gutman, we know about you. Born in Tel Aviv, troubled childhood, blah-de-blah-de-blah. Supported her father's work on the Flores. She's nearly unrecognizable now. She's the Grand Marshal of Rifttown. She's on the Council of Grand Marshals. And she's gonna stop the sector from falling apart. Then there's this asshole, Charles Maxwell. This asshole. Yeah, I know, he panicked when the Outriders were affected by a deadly disease. He killed Jack Tanner and ordered the Outriders' extermination. And then we killed him. No, he was killed by an explosion. Whatever. I like all the Swedish names here. Bruno Nyberg. It's gorgeous. It's not Bruno Nyberg, as an American would say. Hey, Bruno Nyberg. Learn Swedish, people. It's a beautiful language. Really? Wounded Captain Audrey Storm. Look at that. Why are you writing this? Like, who cares, right? It's just like the guy who told us to be like, kill some assholes for me. It's so weird how, like, they write all of this for someone who... Yeah, Captain... Or Lieutenant McCain. We had to speak for him for 5 seconds and he got shot in the head. And... Like... It's like... Who cares, right? You're not giving them any sort of characters in-game. So what's the purpose of writing all of this lore for them? We're like, oh, he was the son of a plumber, and like his favorite color is orange, and he really cares about animal rights and stuff. Well, it's like, yeah, but then you introduced him in game, and then you popped him in the head 5 seconds later. So why do I care about his character? I just... Jack Tanner, you're dead. Oh, look at that. It's young Jakub. Young Jakub also, he has his own lore entry. And then old Jakub, he has his own lore entry. Who's this? Outrider technician. I'm not sure I even sort of like noticed her, right? She tracked another distant probe, struck by the... Oh, she was the guy. She was the girl who like just sort of like melted in the cutscene. Gotcha. That's who she was. Magnus Skarstedt. Skarstedt is a bit of a weird name. It's not exactly Swedish or Danish. It's like something in the middle. That's fine. Oh yeah, Norway. Skarstedt? Skarstedt? Could that be Norwegian? I guess maybe. Anyway, we found his corpse, so he's also dead. The historian, Madame Beauvoir. Okay, whatever. Like, I was hoping for more, to be honest. Mr. Chang! Why are you writing all of this shit about Mr. Chang? He's dead. We never even got to see him for more than a couple of seconds before he died. And then we have Eva Lopez, who's not dead, who has a character we have interacted with and stuff. She gets this. I don't understand how you prioritize here, people. I don't understand, like, why you... This guy, why does he get... Is he relevant to the story? Man, who knows? Who knows? Here we go. Now we get to the actual stuff. Not the NPCs, but the actual sort of lore stuff. Who are the Outriders? Very good question. The Outriders were formed by the leaders of the Enoch Colonization Authority, a hand-picked group of the finest specialists with scientific, engineering, and military expertise with the purpose of serving as humanity's vanguard, or a scout party. As chaos unfolded on Earth and cities fell into rubble, the Outriders were sent as rescue squads into lawless, destroyed places and escorted people to safety. Oh, so the Outriders were a thing even back on Earth. We were not formed for the Enoch exploration stuff. No. It was formed. It was formed by the leaders of the Enoch Colonization Authority. So we were created for the purpose of colonizing Enoch. But we also worked on Earth as rescue squads before. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But it was not to last. Disaster struck their ranks when most of the original Outriders died in the Caravel catastrophe. So I guess I'm the second generation of Outriders? With only a few months before the Flores launch, the ECA was left without a frontline force to scout ahead, establish a safe perimeter on the new planet, and protect the population from any threats. In a mad scramble to rebuild the group, the ECA recruited the new Outriders from various mercenary forces and guns for hire, with Jack Tanner as their leader. So I'm not even like a real Outrider, I'm just a merc. And they just slapped the uniform on me and are like, yeah, you're an Outrider now. They were once considered to be the best humanity had to offer. Now, many among the ECA are skeptical of the new hires, regarding them as nothing more than gun-toting opportunists loyal only to themselves. Man, we got nothing going for us. To appease concerns, the ECA has assigned Sergeant Major Charles Maxwell to oversee their operations upon landing on Enoch. That didn't go well. Maxwell's scathing criticisms of the Outriders are no secret. So to appease concerns and to rebuild the Outriders, we're gonna put the Outriders under the command of someone who hates them. That's smart. But the question remains, these new untested Outriders will be the first boots on Enoch, tasked to secure the region in which our colony will be established and pave the way for all of us who follow. So here's the thing, I get now why people are like, oh my god, you're an Outrider. If the thing was, in fact, that like even back on Earth, the Outriders were sort of like this legendary force. But now it's like, I'm just a dude. I'm just a dude and a merc who got picked up on short notice to join the ranks. So now it doesn't make any sense at all when people are like, oh my god, you're an Outrider. Now we may actually have some hope of doing this because now we have an Outrider on our sides. I could understand that if like it was one of the original Outriders and they were basically like the Justice League on Earth. But I'm just a dude. Okay. There's like no coherency here to this internal lore. Alright, Enoch's governing body. The ECA, the Enoch Colonization Authority, was the governmental body created by former heads of state and CEOs of multinational corporations working together to shepherd project expansion. The ECA was responsible for overseeing the construction of the Florist Ark ship, the Caravel Scout ship. Oh, the Caravel Scout ship. That was the Caravel catastrophe that killed the original Outriders. So they weren't even killed in battle or something? They just killed on some scout ship? And the formation of the Outriders, charged with spearheading the colonization of Enoch. Once on Enoch, the ECA would undertake the role of central authority, overseeing logistics and establishing law and order for the human colony. Bruno Nyberg was the first elected president and traveled with the Flores to Enoch. After the destruction brought on by the Anomaly storms, the colony was thrown into chaos, unable to grow crops or produce medicine, and with most electronics destroyed by the Anomaly, the ECA began to lose control of the first city. Riots and further storms forced the ECA to consolidate their assets and relocate to Rift Town. This little shanty town is all that's left of the ECA. Those rioters and troublemakers that were left behind saw themselves as exiles, cast out from a world order that no longer valued their continued existence. It was not long before the exiles launched an insurgency against, quote-unquote, the authority. A 30-year war of attrition followed. Battle after battle was fought over the few dwindling resources left, over the same stretches of ground that had been dug up and formed into trenches, ground that changed hands as often as the weather. The president and many other top officials of the ECA were killed, leading to structural changes in leadership and Shiro Gutman becoming Grand Marshal. The colony's original population of 500,000 dwindled down to tens of thousands. A generation was born into war and died in war, knowing nothing else. Anomaly storms continued ravaging the land. History gave way to propaganda. Propaganda gave way to a single axiom. The enemy must be eliminated. I mean, you can't. Good lord. Can't build a society this way, people. Ah, the insurgents. A History of Madness by R.T. Eliot. R.T. Eliot, the official archive. Realizing that the Enoch Colonization Authority had abandoned them, leaving them utterly exposed to Enoch's horrors, a revolutionary group formed calling themselves Exiles. These insurgents, as the ECA calls them, launched an all-out assault against the Authority. Despite their superior numbers, the insurgents' inferior weaponry, training and discipline resulted in their attacks being easily rebuffed. The insurgents' cause seemed all but lost, but the ECA was in for an ugly surprise. Soon after the storm started coming, the first Altered began emerging among the insurgents. The power and the fury of these first monstrosities were enough to turn the tide of the war. The ECA's panicked, failed attempts at first killing the insurgents and their leaders, and then peace brokering, were met with derision. The insurgents were out for blood. Today, the insurgents are ruled by merciless altered warlords who believe themselves to be gods, near immortals who bathe in the horror of war, feeding their flock with hatred toward the ECA and nihilistic lust for death. I like that. Okay, so we got the Altered. Humans that have been transformed into godlike beings capable of deciding the outcome of battles. Their powers seem inextricably linked to the Anomaly, though it's unknown to what extent. While they are not immune to the Anomaly's effects, they are far more resilient. Among other things, they possess supernatural strength, are capable of rapid healing, and even appear to survive lethal injuries. These qualities have raised them to the status of living gods, in many people's eyes, worshipped by many, answerable to none. A great deal remains unknown about the Altered, particularly in regard to the effects this state has on the mind. While the extent of their powers vary, many have demonstrated extreme, erratic, and irrational behaviors, akin to the mentally deranged. Some believe that the mutations which make them altered also damage the brain. Others say it is the very power they possess that corrupts them. Some are concerned that without the presence of more moderate Altered who can maintain the balance, such as Seth, the more extreme of them may seek to tear down the very walls and institutions that keep us alive. Or maybe Seth is the one who controls them all. The Hounds. It's a crime syndicate in Rift Town. Who cares? They're a small gang of youths. Who cares? The followers of Guru Salem Koresh. Who cares? No one cares. It's just a cult. Understood. Oh my god. So how many enemies are left? Because we got prologue enemies, altereds. There's one here. Number 1. We haven't encountered yet. Insurgents, Warzone beasts, but then there's like all of these categories. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We haven't even encountered yet. Fascinating. So prologue, yeah. The alien creature. It's a space cow. And Maxwell's guard. Gauss fought him, killed him. Cool design. Like him. Alright, so what do they say about him? He is an insurgent altered gifted with the power to manipulate electromagnetic energy. Yeah, he was a zappy zap guy. Rumors about his upbringing tell us he was born on Enoch in the early days of the colony. Orphaned at age 5. Whatevs, the day a storm hit his platoon, mutating him into a powerful altered, was that he could truly realize his fury. The transition from human to altered seems to take an immense toll on his psyche. While the negative expressions of the individual's personality are amplified, many of their positive traits are muted. So, becoming an altered turns you evil, is what they're saying. Oh, so Salem Koresh is an altered. Oh. Okay. Gotcha. He's got the death cult, so I guess we're gonna do more stuff with the death cult a bit later. Because we haven't encountered him yet. So, you know, there's gonna be more stuff with him. Yeah. Reiner killed him. Captains killed a bunch. Riflemen. Like this, I'm just clicking these to get through them. To be honest. Beastery. The Molten Akari. And these things. Like most of the monstrous creatures seen on Enoch, the Perforo was a pre-existing species that rapidly evolved by the corruption of the Anomaly. Yet the true evolutionary line of this creature is unknown. So, it's like they said, Enoch didn't used to be like these things did not exist when Enoch was scouted, the anomaly changed the planet. So, like, the cause of the anomaly... Like, the anomaly is new. The anomaly didn't used to exist on this planet. So the cause of the anomaly is, like, the big thing in the game, right? Yeah. Some have speculated that a primate-like being may have once existed in the regions. Others say a far simpler explanation for the perverse eerie resemblance... there is a far simpler explanation for its eerie resemblance to human anatomy. It was one of the first hostile creatures that attacked the colony in the early years. So you're saying that these are mutated humans? Is that it? Is that why it's got human-like anatomy? Maybe, right? Venomous version. Alpha version. Screechers. And spiders. That's it. Now this is more important, like Enoch and history and lore. Oh my god, all the journals. Oh, we'll get there. The valley where we first showed up. No man's land. The endless war. It's a stretch of ground carved up by the threads of armored vehicles, decimated by bombings. During the day, few dare to brave the scopes of snipers. Warzone Valley, 31 years ago. The one screen valley that stretched between the forest and mountains formed the habitable zone. The small expanses were the colony's first... Oh, so that's why there's only one forest. Because this planet only has a decently small habitable zone. And the most of the planet is uninhabitable? Okay. But now, the valley is a war zone. Gotcha. Smattering of fortifications and bunkers. Oh boy. Rift Town. Yep. We've seen it. It's a shanty town. It's not that big. The first city. First human colony on Enoch. This is insurgent territory now. It's a favela. We know. Oh, the Flores engine. Brought down to the surface of Enoch to serve as a temporary power source for the colony. Right. So the Flores can't leave orbit because it just doesn't work anymore, I guess. I still think there's tons of people up on the Flores, still, who have been living on the Flores for 30 years. Pretty sure about that. And what else we got? Yeah, the power plant. There's one thing missing here, so I guess we are gonna revisit territories later, I'm gonna say. Eagle Peaks. Yeah, we spotted eagle nests, but those were not eagles. No, they were monsters. We established an outpost at the furthest point of the mountains that expeditionists could reach, before monster storms and impassable terrain turned them back. So this is like the final frontier. Okay. Yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah, sure, whatever. It's a volcano. The Alchemist Slab. Dr. Alexander Rostropovich. Ay. President Nyberg wanted me to study them in the lab. When I was first sequestered from the tedious, tiresome affairs of the ECA's politicians were embroiled in, I was more than happy to stay away. I knew this bunker would make an excellent laboratory and provide ample room for the research I needed to conduct. The lab's altitude and low temperatures proved somewhat of an inconvenience, but I'd worked in worse environments. The mission had changed. President Nyberg had been briefed in secret of a select few humans who survived being struck by an anomaly storm and displayed strange reactions soon after. One subject was able to cause water to boil by touch without scalding their hand. Another had lethal measurements of electrical charge coursing through his body. 6 subjects in total. I designated them with the codename Altered. Oh, so the Alchemist is one who named them. Nyberg and the ECA wanted me to study them in this lab and find out how these reactions occurred in the first place. They believed they could weaponize subjects and subdue the insurgents with their power. Now, I can only describe it as irony that the first real altered was an insurgent, the one to splay Nyberg's insides across Rifttown. Holy shit. But back then, I was furious to learn that the incumbent Grand Marshal ordered I put a stop to my work. I refused. I believed in the research, not because I wanted to harness the power of the altered, but because I wanted to destroy them. At the time, there seemed to be only one way to resist the ECA. Now I know I was a damn fool and lucky to even survive. It was a mistake. The experiments I performed on myself, how I exposed myself to the Anomaly's energy. I too have now been altered, in ways I don't understand and can't control. I can already feel it teasing the limits of my sanity. It doesn't help that this laboratory has entirely excised me from society, though society is probably grateful for it. But at least the ECA is too scared to confront me now, and they leave me to my devices. I still have not found their damned bioweapon. I won't until I can learn how to replicate the results. But now, more important than that is learning how to remove this infection from my own body, to fix what's wrong with me before I lose all sense of who I was. The anomaly is the key. I've seen it now, and heard it, and felt it, and smelt it, and tasted in my mouth the way it fried the air. There can be no denying its potential. More experimentation must begin immediately if I am to truly understand these deviations. For now, this lab shall suffice. Oh boy. Ooh, the forest! It looks like where we were, right? Yeah, we're gonna go back to where it all happened. If the mountains that surround this valley are the walls of our prison, the trees that make up the forest to the east form our bars, the forbidding density of its trunks and foliage obscures any vision beyond the few dozen feet through. Shadows have been seen to move within its depths, and strange, hair-raising shrieks sound out from within. When the Outriders first entered the forest, the fungus was deadly, yet hadn't quite reached its full potential. Now, entering the forest amounts to a death sentence. The fungus permeates the very air and ensures that no one is able to go in and live to tell their story. So we have this valley where all of humanity lives, and the mountains surrounding it set the limit for what is the habitable zone of the planet. And we can't go east either because the forest is blocking us. So it's interesting to find out then, what's beyond the forest. Because like I said before, I do not think that we were the first humans to land on Enoch. So we have the Warzone Valley, as we humans fight each other. And now we're gonna go into the forest, and that's gonna be a thing. And then beyond the forest is gonna be more humans who are not either ECA or insurgents, but like another thing. That's my theory. It's gonna be cool to get there. Okay. Okay, we're doing this, people. Home planet. In 2032, the Earth began experiencing aggressive seismic activity. Some blamed it on secret weapons experiments carried out by the world's superpowers, a tectonic weapon that could target any location in the world and cause an earthquake. Another theory posed that experimental tech that could manipulate gravitational forces was responsible, causing some kind of imbalance in Earth's own gravitational pull. Others believed it to be an unexpected effect of global warming already destabilizing the planet, among other series of natural disasters that awakened long-dormant volcanoes and kicked up skyscraping tsunamis. Whatever the real reason, and perhaps they were all contributing factors, the truth was lost to history as the situation snowballed into catastrophe. Studies revealed that these earthquakes would only grow stronger and more frequent, disrupting weather patterns, toxifying the world's water supply, destroying cities until the Earth's surface became uninhabitable, and all life on the planet would be annihilated within a century. The world's leaders were able to keep the coming extinction-level event secret until 2048, when the first worldwide seismic cataclysm killed hundreds of thousands. Over the coming decades, as global disasters became routine, cities swallowed by the earth, submerged by the ocean, or buried by mountains, holy shit, the world descended into chaos. Global instability, anarchy, and riots engulfed the planet. Throughout this period, many nations tried to find ways to save humanity. Trillions were spent building floating cities, space arcs, vast underground bunkers, but in the end, humanity's inability to work together and the sheer immensity of the task led to failure for all but one project. The SM Flores and the Caravel, the two ships that would embark on an interstellar voyage to planet Enoch to find a new home for the last of humanity. In 2091, the last message from home was received by the Flores computers. As far as anyone knows, there is no longer any life on planet Earth. This is the last transmission, I guess. No contact with Earth lost. Attempt 1 to reconnect to Earth. Attempt 28,000 to reconnect to Earth. No, mid-flight report. It finally happened. I accessed communications today and found the automated mission log reporting thousands of failed reconnection attempts with Earth. Diagnostic checks ruled out faults on our end, and backup comm systems reported 0 messages. It doesn't feel real to write this. Earth is no more. Everyone on Earth is dead. Gotcha. The signal. The first documented interaction with the signal occurred on landing day, the day the Outriders first descended on Enoch to lay the groundwork for the colony to come. Recorded testimony by any Outriders themselves is scarce. The unknown Outrider who personally discovered the exploratory probe that relayed the signal did not survive that day, although Grand Marshal Gutman herself claimed to have heard firsthand by radio the moment of discovery. All we are left with is the knowledge that a digital signal is broadcasting from somewhere beyond this valley, and that somehow, impossibly, the signal predates the arrival of the SM Flores itself. The implications of a technology that was broadcasting on Enoch before we set foot on this planet are tremendous, and many have speculated of the origin of the signal. But that is all it is, speculation. Of much greater effect to our survival than hypotheses of advanced alien races and time travel is the signal's very nature. The fact that it is a digital signal necessitates that it is being broadcasted by an electronic apparatus, a computer, an integrated circuit, a microprocessor. Every known device like this has been turned to useless scrap by the Anomaly, which begs the question, with the Anomaly having destroyed all electronics, how is it possible that this signal is being broadcast at all? Could there exist a place outside the reach of the Anomaly? Oh, so it's like 28 days later. It appears I was wrong about all of the Outriders having died. There is one who still survives, who took record of the signal's frequency, whose discovery and awakening from cryo came entirely by chance, and yet the number written on the Outrider's hand holds a promise that we may finally track this signal down to its source. The Outrider helped me recover the last uplink node known to exist. With this device, we can travel to the place beyond the Anomaly, where we can finally connect to the Flores and bring down all the pods still attached to the ship, as my father hoped to do for so long. All the resources and hardware inside may yet see this war brought to its end. Triangulation of the signal source will narrow down where the journey takes me next. Ooh, satellite uplink node. To restrict access to the Flores' advanced computer systems from the surface of Enoch, the ECA designated the ARC ship's communications to require highly encrypted signals that could only be decrypted and re-encrypted by satellite uplink nodes. Around the time of the first big anomaly storm, however, connections to the Flores became very unstable due to the signal interference caused by the anomaly. There were no more than a few satellite uplink nodes left, given to the President and other high-ranking officials in the ECA. Most were destroyed during the massacre of the ECA's leadership by the altered insurgent. Others were lost during the riots in the first city. The only way to contact the Flores is to recover these lost nodes encased in mega mu metal cases. There remains the possibility one or more of the nodes could still be intact. Yeah, we have one. We have one. Don't worry, we have one. Supply pods, gotcha. Components for construction of industrial 3D printers, seeds to harvest crops, storage drives for backups of all our lost data, central processing units. Oh, the fungus. We'll get to that. Report on the fungus. Exposure day 3. Oh, Magnus Skarstedt. Okay. Following exposure to the black fungus-like substance, patient Z... Oh, he is patient 0. He is now stable in suspended animation. Tomorrow, Dr. Akinboye will begin running a series of lab tests to determine the properties of the organism that has infected the patient. So this is all the aliens, the perforos, right? It's humans who were exposed to the fungus. And Magnus Skarstedt is patient 0. Nurse Kulikowski wore a hazmat suit and padded gloves before removing a sample of the dark, viscous substance draining from the patient's ears, nose, and throat. Despite taking extended protective measures, Nurse Kulikowski quickly exhibited serious, profound symptoms and began vomiting black sludge. Ugh. We could not risk attempting to resuscitate Nurse Kulikowski. Her body was incinerated to prevent further contamination. The medical council has reached a consensus to place the discovery of a vaccine for this disease as top priority. Significant further research will need to be conducted. The council has approved my proposed methodology of research. Modifying a hazmat suit with lead lining should protect from any exposure, although it will impede the speed of my research. Hopefully, even with our newly limited resources, we can find a cure. Especially since it's becoming quickly and abundantly clear that our future on this planet will depend on the ability to leave this valley. After exhibiting black sludge symptoms, Dr. Diana Akimboye was pronounced deceased and her remains have been incinerated. I guess the lead-lined suit was not enough. Few remain who wish to continue the work, but I will stay. I know, with enough time, this nut can be cracked. More will die in the attempt. Perhaps I'll be next, but I cannot just walk away. I will stay. Signed, Dr. Nathan Scurlock. And Dr. Nathan Scurlock is the guy. The xenobiologist who we still... I'm not sure we've met him. But that's the guy who is going to be in the next chapter. It's going to be the fungus guy. He's going to be our fungus guy. Yes. After all of these expeditions I sent into the forest after none of them returned, perhaps it is only justice that it is now my turn to do the same. We call it the fungus, but actually it's something else. We know it does not obey the laws of physics, that it laughs at gravity, that it somehow feeds off of Enoch's energy, the anomaly. We know that it has evolved and mutated since the Outriders first encountered on landing day. We know that its spores are microscopic, and we know what it does to the human body. It takes only minutes for it to start spreading through the lungs, causing them to fill with blood as it liquefies tissue. Then it spreads to the kidneys and liver, and then the heart, slowly reducing our insides to lifeless pulp and black bile. Once it's beneath your skin, there is no way to survive. I have searched every possible avenue to insulate the human body against the fungus. Though I have no way of knowing for certain, the safe assumption is that none of them worked. But I must find a way. It's not just my own life on the line this time, it's the future of our entire species. If we cannot pass through the forest to the source of the signal, we will not survive. What do we know about the anomaly? We have all of the lore entries about the anomaly, although they can be updated. The aberrant energy extant on planet Enoch has been dubbed the Anomaly because it follows few laws of known physics. Its remorselessly violent storms create pockets of distortion where rules like gravity, time, and even the physical manifestations of atoms become unpredictable. The first recorded manifestation was on landing day, when the Outriders tasked with securing the landing area wandered right into one of the Anomaly's storm-like manifestations. Very few walked out. In the years since, the colony has learned to shelter in rifts, caves, and other structures when the storms arrive. But the Anomaly's electromagnetic fields has had even more devastating effects than the storms. First was the erasing of the colony's digital drives filled with all the knowledge from Earth. Then came the slow decimating of any complex electronics, which led to the mass awakening, the whole tragic debacle that set the colony on a course to war. Many have raised the question, why wasn't the anomaly detected by Earth's instruments during the exhaustive study of its habitability? Had they known, certainly Enoch would never have been selected for colonization, because the anomaly didn't exist. Observation of the anomaly's three distinct phases. In the inert phase, the anomaly seems to have only subtle, harmless effects on the environment. Interactions with the atmosphere create auroras, and sensitive electronics start to malfunction. This is the phase in which we found the anomaly when we first landed in the valley. Little did we know it was during this inert phase that the anomaly builds pressure toward an inevitable explosive release. In the awakening phase, the anomaly begins causing its long-term negative effects. Genetic alteration to flora and fauna result in rapid mass mutations. Once green valleys wither and die, lakes become toxic, and frequent electromagnetic pulses render all electronics useless. In the final active phase, the anomaly's accumulated charge reaches its zenith and explodes into storm-like phenomena. At first, it appears as a flickering in the atmosphere, while moments later manifests as bended beams of ionized gas similar to a solar prominence. These violent conflagrations light up the skies with colors that are beautiful in their way, while obliterating almost any living thing they touch and upending the very nature of reality. A storm can last for hours, or even days, before it finally calms down and returns to its inert phase, leaving behind surreal distortions as it begins building pressure again. They came, the storms, when least expected, moving like weather systems across the surface of the planet. It seems that every year they grow stronger, and at this rate I wonder if there's even a top end to their destructiveness. They've killed so many, and left the rest of us living like troglodytes in caves. Without electronics, without satellites or radars, we have no way to predict the storm's appearances. We've come to rely on old backyard remedy, forks hanging in the wind. They clatter when disturbed by surging electronic waves, but there's almost always a warning that comes too late. Where do they come from? What causes them? Is it possible that, like the Higgs field, the anomaly permeates all matter? But instead of granting objects mass, it operates at a more destructive level. This is pure hypothesis, of course, with no possibility of verification. How can I study a phenomenon that has not neutralized the very tools that allow me to study it? After an anomaly storm has passed through an area, it will sometimes leave behind a trail of effects, of distortions that appear to bend and sometimes even violate the laws of physics. Within these distortions, up might become down, water might boil at 0 degrees Celsius, and perpetual motion may no longer be impossible. These distortions are baffling, sometimes dangerous when coming into direct contact with them, and often remain as a persistent stain on the land for months or even years after the storm has passed. Planetary effects on electrical and electronic devices. Careful study and analysis has prompted the following conclusions. First, we must establish that electrical devices are mechanical objects that take electric energy and roughly convert it into heat, motion, or light. They are fairly resilient to power fluctuations. Electronics, computers, hard drives, networks, and anything else using transistors or circuit boards, operate at low voltages to manipulate electrical energy into more complex forms, such as audio, video, data, and are far more susceptible to power fluctuations. There is much speculation of an unknown force present in Enoch's atmosphere, which many have come to call the Anomaly. This anomaly emits random intermittent electromagnetic pulses, EMPs. These EMPs introduce high voltages to electronics, causing them to overload and overheat, effectively melting their internal components. EMPs can still affect electrical devices, such as making a light bulb glow brighter, but do not outright destroy them. This is how hard drives, computers, and 3D printers stop working, while it's still possible for there to be functional vehicle engines, heaters, lights, and batteries. We foresee that a continuation of these EMPs will eventually destroy all electronics, and it's vital that we convert all that we can into mechanical or analog configurations. We can use electric devices, we just can't use electronics. Okay. History of Earth. Apocalypse doorsteps. G9 closed meeting. I'll take your questions now. Earthquakes. Are the earthquakes natural? What? Was the last year's underground nuke responsible? Ooh. We don't know. It's unclear whether this is caused by natural or man-made forces. Can the destruction be contained? We don't know, but our model suggests the next tectonic wave, a 9.7, holy shit, will strike South America in 3 months. There will be more tectonic movements after that, and they will grow stronger and more frequent until the continents start repositioning. But sea levels are already rising, we can't take. How long until Earth no longer supports life? Our best estimate, Earth will be incapable of sustaining life beyond the end of the century. The group of 9 has agreed to the following. Yeah, classified, understood. We cannot stay. There will be nothing left on Earth to accommodate us. Oh, Sibylla May Flores, so she named it. An Ark ship built in orbit, capable of transporting us to the nearest habitable planet. The Ark ship will be powered by nuclear energy with capability for 500,000 passengers. An auxiliary scout ship, the Caravel, will also be built to reach the destination planet before the Ark ship to establish a safe zone and prepare the ground for the first human settlement outside Earth. The original Outriders are not dead. The original Outriders reached this planet before we did. The original Outriders are living outside of the valley. That's my theory. The Star Trek convention is down the road. Ha ha ha. A floating city on the surface of the ocean. That is the only realistic option we have. Blah blah blah. I'm calling it. I'm calling it. We have to get to the Caravel catastrophe to find out. It's gonna be somewhere on this, the flight to Enoch thing. Yes, yes, the Ark ship continues. We're building the Ark ship. Got to caution the board that the progress made should not be expected to be maintained. There lurks dangers. Even if we effortlessly leave Enoch, Earth, there's no telling what might await us on Enoch. We will require highly trained individuals to extract VIPs from hostile zones. We will need to make a team of Avengers. The vanguard of Enoch. The Outriders. Yeah. The point of no return. The latest earthquake's epicenter was recorded in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Yup. Everything's going to shit. Fortaleza, Cape Town, St. Lucia, Lagos, Puerto Rico. All gone. Oh boy. And the Outriders revamped by Bruno Nyberg. Our losses are immeasurable. The majority of the Outriders have been declared missing or dead due to the explosion of the Caravel. Oh really? Aww. Worst of all, we are now left without a scout ship, and without a force to secure our future colony on Enoch. Nothing can replace what we have lost, but we are now left with no alternative than to accept the hand we have been dealt. I've already overseen immediate action into repopulating the ranks of the Outriders, drawn from the top mercenary groups that have long been vying for our affections, and a place among the SM Flores. They will all have all of 2 months to train. So, don't know all that much about the Caravel explosion? What we got here? Expansion project. Ah, the Caravel. We'll get to that. Flores flight reports, armament, mega mu metal, cryopods, 3D printers, year 1 on Enoch, the Endless War, Enoch's natives. The Ark ship. Yeah. Sibylla May Flores, she invented the grav drive engine, 15% light speed, expansion project, blah blah blah. Scout ship, the Caravel, blah blah. The Caravel. The forward reconnaissance and migration ship, the Caravel, was meant to reach Enoch after an interstellar voyage of 80 years, 3 years prior to the arrival of the SM Flores. Along with other essential crew aboard the Caravel, the Outriders' objective was to scout the landing area and establish a safe zone for colony establishment, designate resource locations and gather relevant data, and prepare the ground for the arrival of the SM Flores. The future safety and prosperity of all colonists on the New World were in the hands of the Outriders. Unfortunately, due to catastrophic engine failure at the time of launch, the Caravel was rendered inoperational. In the chain reaction caused by the explosion, over 8,000 souls were lost, along with nearly the entirety of the Outrider team. Well, sorry for my theory then, if it just didn't even launch. Well, the Caravel would never be able to accomplish its goal. The need for the Outriders remained. New recruits had to be found to fulfill the mission of securing the surface of Enoch for the future colony. I still maintain that the Flores is not the first humans on Enoch. But we'll figure it out. There's stuff we don't know yet. Bloody blah. This is how the Flores works. Flores flight reports. Major incident. Okay. Mental breakdowns. The mission is a death sentence. Gotcha. 10 more years until we reach Enoch. And unfreezing from cryo. Blah blah blah. Coffee. Unthaw my eyelids. Oof. Yeah. Without the protective measures installed on the ship, we likely would have never reached Enoch. Blah de blah de blah. During flight, the vast majority of passengers and crew were in hibernation. A team of 50 crew members remained awake to oversee the ship's systems, to ensure it remained on course, and to perform any required maintenance on subsystems. The active crew spent most of their time in the crew centrifuge, which created an artificial gravity of 0.72 g. The active crew rotated every 30 days, for a total of more than 1,000 shifts over the course of the journey. It's kind of cool. The armaments. The combined arsenal on board the Flores. Yeah, there's a bunch of guns up there. Gotcha. The Mega Mu metal. Whatevs. Cryopods. Whatevs. 3D printers. Whatevs. Year 1 on Enoch, the landing. After an 83-year-long journey, the Flores finally reached Enoch's orbit. The trip wasn't without its trials, as cosmic radiation, solar flares, and other deep space hazards has caused many system failures. The ECA feared these cracks could grow worse the longer they delayed, waiting for the optimal window in which to proceed with the landing. Adding to the uncertainty, the probes that were sent to the planet's surface failed to return the necessary data to greenlight the landing. The majority of probes encountered high ionization of the atmosphere and persistent static, which led to the loss of signal, something that worried many. If the first colony on Enoch was to succeed, time was of the essence. The ECA made the decision to send the Outriders. In January of 2159 Earth time, the Outriders first touched ground on Enoch. This didn't mean winter on this particular part of Enoch, as the weather was spring-like. While Enoch's days and seasons are very similar to Earth's, a new calendar will likely be required. Until then, I'm sticking with the calendar I know. The Outriders were instructed to recover the missing probes and verify the data collected. Following this, they would oversee the first modules and pods to be brought down to the surface. While details remain hazy on what exactly happened to the Outriders that day, the ECA successfully completed these first stages of colonization. Among the first modules to be brought down was a nuclear-powered engine that propelled the Flores. One of the engines was designated for landing on the surface of Enoch to serve as a temporary power supplier for the colony. Due to the engine's prodigious size, the task of bringing it down caused anxiety to many. The consequences of any accident that might occur during its descent would mean not only a limited supply of energy, but also a potential meltdown of the core. For this reason, the engine was the first module to be brought down, before all the drop pods. The SM Flores was beyond a doubt a miracle of modern engineering, especially considering the chaotic end days it arose out of. So many details had been considered, knowing that there would be no resupply drops. Everything that would be needed from launch to landing to colonization would have to be built into the ship's structure. The core design principle was modularity. Each component could be individually attached or detached from the main ship without compromising the integrity of the whole. Any malfunction or damage could be easily isolated, and upgrades could be made without disruption. The Flores was host to dozens of drop pods, autonomous vessels that carried cryopods containing the colonists, as well as essential resources and equipment. These drop pods could automatically navigate to the coordinates they were assigned, while coordinating with each other to avoid collisions. Whew. Powering the cryopods. Yeah. Is this interesting? Can't bring all the food. I know, it's still up there. Industrial chains, I know. Outriders disbanded. When the smoke settled, the infected Outriders were quickly placed into cryostasis, both to preserve their lives and isolate any possibility of contagion. Those that survived were arrested and kept confined in cells awaiting trial. To many Outriders, the greatest punishment was not the disbanding of the unit, but the blame assigned to them for every ill that struck the colony, from the storms to the monsters. Sarah Tanner, Jack Tanner's daughter, made many attempts to clear the Outriders' name, but she failed to see how effective a scapegoat they had become. Owing to interventions by Sergio Acosta, the ECA chief of security who was on planet during the incident, any Outriders willing to write statements claiming responsibility for the landing day fiasco were able to merge into the ECA's own forces, but many refused such an oath and suffered for it. One other participant in the incident, Shira Gutman, at the time a senior engineer, was treated rather more generously due to her rank and essential knowledge. She was acquitted of all charges brought against her and praised by the ECA for her handling of the situation. Aw man. Setting up the colony. So many details. Good lord. A foreign agent. Yeah, the fungus, right? Yes. Microbiology teams discovered worrying news after closer examination of environmental samples. Although bacteria and other microbiological life appeared similar to those found on Earth, smaller agents, like microbes and viruses, were more prevalent in the soil, water, and air. Even more concerning was the resemblance to prions, which are known to be linked to neurodegenerative diseases. A series of tests conducted to determine their influence on human health was inconclusive, but what was certain was that the discovery that 7.38% of colonists had been found with traces of the prion-like agents in their blood. Though no definitive symptoms could be observed, some patients appeared to develop neurological conditions that caused suffering. 12 deaths were also recorded among patients that suffered from underlying health problems. Further study was called for. The concentration of the agent in the colonists' blood was found to have slowly increased over time. A high enough concentration suggested that neural damage was possible. Scientists involved advised the population against the drinking of unfiltered water, the consumption of unwashed and uncooked food. Advice on the use of anti-dust masks that could filter the air was withheld by the ECA, as they believed it would lead to widespread panic. Oh wow, that's actually surprisingly topical. The low supply of masks meant that only a fraction could wear them. The ECA hadn't considered masks would be required on such a large scale, seeing as initial air quality surveys hadn't raised any red flags. Thousands of additional masks were scheduled to be manufactured, but they had to be squeezed into an already tight production schedule and were relegated to medium priority. It's very topical, people. Very topical. First, citizens. Oh boy, citizens of Enoch. Visit the Labor Center for Assignment. Living arrangement. Time to rest and recover from cryostasis. Locked in. Expeditions commissioned by the ECA to find a safe passage out of the valley discovered no such way exists. The forest's fungus killed anyone who stepped foot inside within hours. The mountains that surrounded the valley were impassable both for their terrain and the creatures that resided there. Despite the ECA's ban on citizens trying to leave the valley, many attempted the journey. They quickly learned that at least on this matter the ECA was not lying. But things in the valley only grew more ominous as the weeks went on. Strange auroras that appeared on the horizon creeped closer and closer. Electronics suffered damage frequently, identified as a result of electromagnetic pulses in the atmosphere. Suddenly, all digital communications were down, including contact with the Flores. Dozens of drop pods containing equipment and resources that were still attached to the Flores and that we were depending on could not be called down. At that moment, we became locked in the valley, oblivious to the horror that was yet to come. The first Anomaly storm. It is difficult to paint a precise picture of the aftermath of the first Anomaly storm that hit the colony. The chaos that ensued made record keeping a non-priority, and of course many that were responsible for keeping the records had perished. Much of the knowledge of the days that followed is passed along by word of mouth. Some of the stories are exaggerated, some understated, all of them harrowing. What is known is that food production was brought to a near halt as a sudden increase in toxicity of the soil and the reduction of water availability led to plant life withering in a matter of days. Many machines and devices that used electronic components were fried. Medical and research equipment was rendered useless. All the data stored on the networks of servers was lost. Industry was brought to its knees as energy production ceased, with solar panels and turbines left non-responsive. Damage to the landed engine's nuclear reactor risked a meltdown that loomed like a ticking time bomb over the colonists. While the ECA did all they could to pay respect to the families of the bereaved and bury the dead in separate graves, many corpses started to rot, luring scavenging creatures that feasted on the dead or stole food from warehouses hit by the storm. An order was issued to bury the remaining dead in mass graves, but the creatures had already smelled and tasted blood. At first, the colonists were able to scare some of them away, but as time went by, the creatures became bigger and braver. Not great. The aftermath. Science and engineering teams concentrated on finding methods of forecasting future anomaly storms. It was hypothesized that the unpredictability of the anomaly was such that storms could not be foreseen beyond merely a few minutes in advance. A few minutes was scarcely enough time to evacuate. We realized that more deaths and damage to the colony due to the storms was inevitable. All we could hope for was to create the infrastructure that might increase our chances of survival. A plan was set in motion that called for the building of multiple shelters and bunkers, both in residential and working areas. The crude technology used to increase cement production allowed the cement plant to continue operating despite the anomaly's effects. Speed and efficiency were still severely impacted, as other links in the production line have suffered drawbacks, particularly as the excavators in the quarry mines. With our electronics rendered useless, many have explored alternative methods into achieving functionality more advanced than a light bulb. An audio hobbyist proposed using vacuum tubes instead of transistors. Initial prototypes are showing promise. A simple radio device appeared to have greater resilience to the anomaly, with little damage noted. Although this technology wouldn't allow the building of complex computers, it could at least serve as a basis for control systems of radio communication equipment, both of which are currently non-operational after the last storm that struck the city. The relocation. As the ECA searches for a more secure location to migrate the colony, current analyses suggest that the only way to secure food production is via the construction of underground aeroponic farms. Aeroponic farming is the only way to grow enough food to sustain the population, as this technology needs the least space and the lowest volume of water. As low as 2% of the water used in conventional farming. In an aeroponic farm, nutrient-rich water is vaporized to form a mist that is then sprayed onto the roots of crops. With the collect nutrient solutions, it would be possible to provide a continuous yield of sweet potatoes, the most calorie-dense food available. I've seen this. This is what they did in The Martian with Matt Damon. That's a good movie, by the way. Go check it out. Predictions indicate this can provide our current numbers of total of 2,000 calories per day. Moving the farms underground will require grow lights, which in turn increase the necessity for more fuel. One scout team has reported their discovery of formation of deep rifts that could provide natural shelter from the anomaly storms. So underground potato farming. Cool. Extracting crude oil. Man, starting from zero, right? Tracing the signal. Ooh, classified memo from Bruno Nyberg. With communication suffering due to the anomaly's interference, it is more important than ever that we redouble our efforts to trace the signal that has eluded us for so long. With the quarry's camp and excavators now ready for action, we will use the materials we extract to build a base in the Eagle Peaks, and a radio tower within it. It is our best chance at finding the signal again, and finally tracing its source. As an aside, this spot would be an ideal location to continue our research into all the strange phenomena we have observed on Enoch. The Altered. Away from prying eyes. The engine explosion. The ECA moved to find the location in the valley that could provide natural shelter from the storms. Yeah, Rift Town. That's what they built. Back in the first city, however, the storm's damage to the engine finally led to a complete failure of its systems. The engine's nuclear core suffered a meltdown, with the intense heat generated causing a series of steam and hydrogen explosions that spread radioactive particles and irradiated the industrial zone, becoming what we've all come to know as the wreckage zone. Those in the zone died of radiation sickness within weeks. Many more deaths were recorded due to water pollution. With the nuclear core no longer providing power and the collapse of energy production as a whole, the cryopods that still contained around 400,000 souls could no longer be sustained. Their batteries were running out, and without power they could not provide life support to their occupants. A decision had to be made. Pull everyone out of cryostasis at once, despite the ECA's inability to feed, house and clothe a fraction of that number, or let them die a peaceful death in their frozen coffins. In a matter of days that were filled with argument, dramatic speeches, and exhortations, a fateful decision was reached. 400,000 souls were awoken and thrown into a nightmare. The first city was overwhelmed. Crude shacks emerged around the city's outskirts in great numbers, quickly forming into slums. Starvation was rife, disease spread like wildfire. All those that hoped to find a new world, a chance for a fresh start, they were instead greeted with destitution and death. Fucking hell. Yes, the mass awakening. We know. Awaken everyone. Don't have enough food for everyone. The second anomaly storm. A second storm descended on the overcrowded first city soon after. Thousands died overnight. For most in the slums, the hastily built shanty towns outside the walls, this was their first encounter with an anomaly storm. As the population recovered from the initial shock, fear gave way to anger. People fought over food, looting became standard practice, while gangs ruled the other outer districts. Riots rocked the city, starting in the slums and inching their way into the main hubs. As riots expanded throughout the colony, certain underground groups looked to take advantage. While most of the ECA's forces occupied tried to quell the riots, organized crime seized its chance to raid warehouses for food, medicine, materials, and armaments. It is estimated around 20% of the ECA's total supply was stolen, together with other valuables and non-replicable artifacts. Much of the stolen goods later found their way into the black market, sold at exorbitant prices. With the ECA shifting all resources to erecting emergency shelters and building Rift Town, concerns were raised about the knock-on effect this would have on the construction of housing for the tens of thousands outside the city walls that are still without roof over their heads. The ECA has reassured relevant parties they are doing everything in their power to. To compound the chaos, once timid creatures that lived in the valley now seemed to be transformed by the storms as well, and started attacking humans on sight, growing bolder and drawing closer to the city every day. The ECA had neither the numbers nor the supplies to deal with the constant attacks or the swelling uprisings of discontent among the colonists. The ECA's council voted to close the first city's gates, exiling those in the slums to their fates. A few ECA patrols tried to keep the peace outside the walls and provide what rations they could spare to these so-called exiles. But the uprisings against them were so brutal and violent that soon the ECA stopped sending any troops or rations out at all. This was the beginning of the end. And then come to the endless war. Yeah, I know. Enoch belongs to the exiles. The natives. Oh yeah, the big things we saw in one of the cutscenes. The huge aliens. The storm carriers. This giant can often be seen traversing the plains of this valley and is feared by all in the colony. Compared to most other creatures that have shown extreme aggression, the storm carrier may at first seem indifferent to human presence as it strides across the valley, trampling everything that happens to lie along its path. If provoked, however, the storm carrier will rain destruction and annihilate anything that challenges it, even the altered. Although no one has dared scale a storm carrier to take measurements, calculation of its shadow has revealed an approximate height of 50 meters and length of 12 meters, although this can vary greatly depending on the maturity of the animal. Some suspect the storm carrier has a sixth sense, an ability to perceive when an anomaly storm is about to erupt long before it erupts. In the early days, this led many to believe the creatures somehow caused or carried the storms with them, leading to them being given the moniker of storm carriers. Though their ability to predict storms is an unproven theory, when the storm carriers begin to migrate away from a region, we recommend the said region be evacuated immediately. Ooh. Now we have all the miscellaneous, the earthly artifacts. This is just like a teeny tiny thing, right? Yeah. What we got? Jane Colm's journal. Who cares? Shira's journal. Who cares? Aidan McCain's journal. Really, really, who cares? He got shot in the head 5 seconds after we met him. Who cares? So, Yeah, the journals. The journals, who cares? What about the notes? I don't know. Eva's letter. Transfer order. Dr. Nathan Skurlock. Meh. ECA research report. Abandon the Scarsted specimen. Oh. I guess. What do we got? Alchemist Slab. Yeah. Experimenting on humans. Been there for many years. Subject number 6. In spite of his uncontrollable animosity towards me, the incendiary ability displayed by subject number 6 is the most promising development to date in transmogrifying a man into a viable altered of my own creation. Now that his transformation has stabilized, I can attempt to undo what I have done to him. But while 6 has potential to thrive as a stage 2 test subject, some failures have been undeniable. Subject number 3 died from catastrophic organ failure. In his final breath, he broke a smile. I felt a pang of envy. So we're gonna encounter number 6, obviously. Yeah. I don't know how long it's been anymore, I've lost track. I was a fool to pin my hopes to subject 6. His overwhelming hatred for me seems to have completely compromised whatever stability his transformation initially displayed. Any attempt to reverse his alteration have completely failed. I fear he too has descended into catastrophic failure. Is it possible he is willing to part? Is he willing this part of his transmogrification? Is that possible? Is that what I should have been doing to my curse? Trying to will it under my control? Tonight I may have found my answer. While attempting to capture an insurgent to be my next subject, I made a breakthrough. An ECA soldier accosted me. A sudden anger raged in me and I grabbed him. He scratched at my eyes trying to escape my grasp, but in an instant his head burst open on his shoulders, bathing my face in hot blood. I was so surprised that it took me a moment to realize what I imagined in a flash had actually occurred. This unforeseen rush of power must have intoxicated me. Stirring emotion I thought vanished from my withered soul. I knew I wanted to do it again. I waited there, hoping for searchers to come. 2 eventually came, looking for their missing compatriot, and with intense concentration I was able to boil their blood within their bodies until it sprayed out of their eyes. I did not even need to touch them. I have avoided involving ECA soldiers in my experiments, but I no longer have the luxury to be picky with the subjects I choose. Oof. Yay. So maybe the Alchemist is still alive. Maybe the corpse you found wasn't actually the Alchemist. Who knows? Alright? Yes. I lost control. I murdered on a whim. Can't contain. No, can't be certain what the greater good is anymore. And Subject 6 has escaped. It is my own fault. Subject 6 was the first to survive Anomaly exposure, the first to show potential, but I allow myself to be distracted. Fascinated by the increasing power of my own abilities, I failed to watch number 6 closely enough. Who knows what powers he may have manifested, what danger he now opposes. The last thing this cursed world needs is another one of me. Especially not one created by my own hubris. I know I must find him, and I must stop him before he finds me. Okay, fine. Maybe the Alchemist is dead. Cult leader, blah 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 blah. That's it. That's about the lore we have right now. And it looks like we have discovered... I mean, not even half of it. I'm gonna say we have discovered like a third of all the lore in the game. So we're gonna have to do this probably 2 more times. Okie dokie. But now, back to the action.